All right, we are here back at MIM Tips and Tricks, and I have Niall and I have Paul.
Howdy.
Welcome.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
I'm jealous of Paul's t-shirt. I want the same one also.
What's yours? I've just noticed now. Config manager and
This one, I don't know what it says. Coffee, I think. It's an old Adaptiva freebie t-shirt from Ignite. Back in the days when we used to go to Ignite, those good old days, you know?
yeah.
Good old days. So, you guys, I mean, I've been looking at your blogs for many years. I mean, starting my career with Config Manager, I really lean towards the Windows Noob. That's a site you know as a IT pro, and for you, Paul, your name it's like set in stone. If you Google stuff, you turn two names that will definitely come up on certain areas.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to have you. I mean, wow.
That's good to be here. Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
So we should get started. And Niall, I want to ask you some personal questions before
Sure.
we start into the technical stuff, because I don't really know you guys. I've never been to the MVP Summit live, and yeah, we should get to know you guys, right? You do all this blogging, and so who are you? So Niall, age, personal status, and where do you live?
Oh my God, my age. Yeah, I'm 55 years old. I'm an old man. And personal status, I have what's called a Sambo here in Sweden, mother of my 3 boys. And they're all teenagers now. Actually, 2 teenagers and 1 23-year-old. So they're keeping me busy. And that explains all the gray hairs, of course. And I've been working with Config Manager and Intune and any sort of client management for the last, I don't know how many years, too many years.
Too many years.
Yeah.
Can you have too many years in that business?
Well, I guess, yeah, we'll see. I mean, I still have a few more years before I can officially escape and retire. At least 10 years, I guess, which sucks.
So, what company do you work at?
Me, I work at Tetra Pak. It's a global company. We make packaging products, packaging food, usually food and drink, and it's a global company, which is great. So I get to work with people from all around the world every day. We've got a very complex environment, really locked down with lots of security and network challenges, shall we say. And that definitely keeps me on my toes because there's always something that we have to overcome, especially when it comes to anything that's cloud-based. Because, of course, Microsoft seems to think that we should all have everything open all the time, pretty much.
Yeah, it is always network or DNS, right?
Yeah, and no one uses proxies. No one uses VPNs. What's enterprise Wi-Fi?
And when did you become MVP?
First year was 2010. So this year, if I get renewed, because it's a yearly thing for anyone who's new to this, it'll be 12 years in a row. So I'm really hopeful for that.
Wow. Congratulations, Niall. And very well deserved.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. And by the way, where do you live? In Sweden, right?
Yeah, I live in the south of Sweden, just outside of Helsingborg, which is a beautiful city near the sea. And I live in a small place called Jonstorp, which is also by the sea, and a really nice place. Nice out in the country. I can go cycling and swimming in the sea in the summer, and I love that. It's great. Great way to unwind after looking at consoles all day.
Yeah. That's really good. Thank you, Niall.
Thank you.
So, Paul, your age, personal status, and where do you live?
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, I'm 50. I'm thinking now 51. Getting old. I'm forgetting my age. I had to check the year on the calendar then to confirm. So 51, yeah. I'm married and have 4 children, 3 boys and a girl, and same as Niall, sort of teenage years and above. My oldest has moved away to university now, so we've got 2 boys and a girl left to try and move them on, to keep them going, to go. And we also look after my brother-in-law as well, who has Down syndrome, and he's called Paul as well. So we have 2 Pauls in the house, which creates confusion, but it helps us to remember names. And he's 47, I think. Yeah. So yeah, I live just outside of London. I'm in the Greater London area, a couple of miles away from Greenwich. You've probably all heard of Greenwich, the centre of time.
Yeah.
Such a few miles away from the Royal Greenwich Park, which has got the fantastic meridian line cutting through it, and you can straddle the sort of east and western hemispheres. Is that right? Hemispheres, east and west. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, and I've lived in London since 1995. Before that, I was at university, but I grew up in the north of England in a place called Barnsley, and that's my favourite football team. That's what I support still, in a capacity of just kind of listening to them on the internet, listening to the games, and coming to the away matches when they're in London. But yeah, I go back up north as much as possible to see my mum and you know, enjoy getting away from the city really. So where Niall has got all this lovely countryside nearby to go cycling, I have traffic and, you know, busyness, but I still pop out and cycle and have a really nice Lido open air swimming pool. I'm 10 minutes away, where I spent the whole of the winter swimming in a heated pool, thankfully. Doing a challenge. I did 100 kilometers in 100 days.
Wow.
And my swimming is terrible. It really is. I can just about do this stroke. Yeah, I can't do the freestyle, and that's going to be a challenge for me myself this year. After doing that, I want to try and learn to do freestyle swimming. Yeah, that's where I'm at.
So cool. So I've heard that London is pretty expensive to like live in. Is that right?
Yes.
One of the most expensive cities.
But he's a consultant, so he's okay.
I have to be. It is, and you know, I feel for the kids, because as they get older and as they're getting to this age now where they're going to, you know, hopefully start to look at, you know, moving away, and how do they get their foot on the ladder for getting a house or a flat or something, is just impossible. So people who have grown up here are priced out of the area, and they have to kind of move even further afield. It's tricky. If you're in a commuter belt, you know, the prices are high. So yeah, it's very expensive. But you know, as I said, I've been here since '95, and there's still an excitement of going into London, a real buzz of going into the city, and always finding something new when you go. Yeah. There's so much on your doorstep.
It's a big city. I've been once in London, and
yeah,
that was when I was in 8th grade. So it's been a long while, but have to go there soon.
Definitely.
So, Paul, how long have you been in the business, and where are you? Which company do you work for?
Yeah, so I've been in IT since that move to London. So 95 was my first kickstart in IT, doing second line support type work, and you know, working at that time on Windows 3.1 and Novell, and you know, I'd just come freshly out of university and was sat there kind of going, I'm working with computers. Wow, you know, it's kind of like almost getting paid for something I enjoyed was kind of strange and satisfying from that early point. But over time, I've always freelanced. I've always contracted, but in the last 5 years, longer I've been working through the business, but in the last 5 years, I've been doing a lot of direct work with customers. So I have my own business, SCCM Solutions Limited, which needs a rebrand. Really, it's getting dated.
MEM Solutions, perhaps.
Cloud, no, I can't do
all
cloud.
Kind of cloud solutions.
Yeah.
Then you are
solutions.
I started thinking the other day, and I was kind of searching and thinking, wow, there's lots being taken behind on that. But yeah, it's been super busy this year, unbelievably so. And you know, I'm really happy for where it's at the moment, and just, you know, fingers crossed that just keeps going. It's going really well.
Yeah, I guess COVID has helped a lot on transitioning people from traditional on-prem stuff to more cloud, right? And that made us very busy in this long period of COVID.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think we're seeing customers who are now going, okay, we need to decentralize, as you know, we need to sort of not be building on-prem or whatever, and that's really changed in the UK with a lot of companies who are looking at autopilot for the first time and things like that, and co-management definitely is one of those things that customers are looking at.
Mm. And Paul, you became MVP when?
5 years ago. So yeah, this would be year 6 if I were to be renewed. So a relative noob in comparison to Niall, but still possibly one of the oldies now potentially. But yeah, it's a real honor to be on that program.
In this company, you're not a noob. I'm the noob. So
Yeah.
yeah, well done, Paul, and very well deserved.
Thank you.
So you guys, you really work in depth with Configuration Manager, right? Given the name of your company, Paul, SCCM, which is not a thing really anymore, but many call it SCCM. A lot of my customers, at least. And that makes it pretty hard, because when you block stuff and you want to use the new naming MEM, CM, MECM, what is it called? It's like, can we have a standard? Maybe not. It's the community, you know, that decides really. So when you do these new blocks and you call it like Endpoint Manager, maybe the new guys and the new girls, they know what we are talking about, but those who don't do client management every day, they want to call it SCCM.
Yeah,
and I think there's nothing wrong with that. I mean,
No.
Pretty much anyone knows what SCCM is in the IT field, and even though there have been people on the program manager side who have complained about the use of SCCM, some of them use it also themselves. And you know, if you look in the registry and log files, you might even see it there too. So we're all guilty of calling it SCCM, even me.
So what
to be honest, I mean, if you're going to Google for a fix, you don't type MEMCM in your search yet. Line maybe, but config manager. But really, I type in SCCM and then what I'm looking for.
Yes.
But really, when you look at problems in config manager, right? Let's just use config man. Then everybody knows what it is. But if you want to find a solution on a problem, we still see the same problems, right? Today, as we did 10 years ago in the product, right? It's like some of the same issues. This is a boundary issue. This is, whatever, a
bug.
A bug, yes, exactly.
The
ID didn't merge, etc. Right?
I'm setting up a greenfield at the moment, and a new config manager site, and all those problems that we've had, as you say, for a long time are creeping out. And needs to go in the boundary. That's not being defined. Yeah, all this. Oh, it's not in the limiting collection, so it's not going to come into this one. All those things that, you know, we've tackled day in, day out, and thankfully there's a whole host of sites to get that information from, and to, you know, a lot of them archive back years and years.
Exactly, and these old VBS scripts still works really great with the product, right? So I mean, setting up the SQL and all the stuff you need with config manager, it's still the same under the hood, right? And as you said, Niall, we see naming standards that has not changed, but why should we change it just because we rebrand a product, right?
Right.
It's, yeah.
And they did a lot of rebranding of the products lately, especially since they started pushing it out much faster with the technical preview versions of SCCM. So when myself and Paul did our so far 10-part cloud attach series, we called it Endpoint Managers Silver Lining, because the play on that was that, okay, so what is the silver lining of SCCM today, right? Because it's been around for, it feels like a million years, but it's been around for a long, long time, right? Everyone's been using it, but the silver lining of that product is the cloud attach and what you gain from it.
Yeah.
So we put together a series together, blogging about those features.
I saw that, and it was really, really great. And actually, what I wanted to invite you guys to actually talk about, because as I mentioned, COVID has been a huge problem for companies to onboard new people, to manage these devices from home, to how do we get a patch to this device, because we don't have a DMZ zone, we don't have a distribution point out there. How can we deliver this? And yes, you could say I want to have the patch directly from Microsoft, but how do I get the policy out there if you can't reach the device?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, everyone has VPN, of course they do, but it was like maybe fitted for 10% of your users. So now suddenly it was 100%. So there was this huge load and everything crashed. So, but we have a thing in Config Manager now that can help us, like CMG, right? So
yep.
Suddenly we have a highway to Azure, and from Azure we can have these policy go down to the clients, right?
Exactly.
So the CMG was a really saver for the config manager environment. And there are some other cloud attach features as well, and those are the ones you blogged about, right, in your series. And what are they?
Co-management and tenant attach. And we'll take a look at some devices in Intune just to see what they look like, and a bit on the SCCM side coming shortly. But I know that Paul wants to get talking about that too. So off you go, Paul.
Okay. So cloud attach as such, as Niall says, we have co-management, we have tenant attach. There's also endpoint analytics. Our blog haven't got there yet. We spent a lot of time on the other two, and so that's to come. Okay. The cloud management gateway, we included that in the blog series, but it's actually not part of cloud attach. That's a separate. So the question, I suppose, around CMG is, do you need that for cloud attach? Well, no, not necessarily. So if you're co-managing or tenant attached, that's a completely separate thing, but you can utilize it. For example, you may want to co-manage autopilot devices and bring them in for whatever reason into Config Manager, and therefore, if you're going to have clients out on the cloud, your CMG is a good way to get them talking through and back into SCCM or Config Manager. Sorry, not SCCM. Okay. I will keep saying SCCM all night as well.
Yeah, it's fine.
So I don't know. Do you want to kick off with some overview?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Shall I share my screen now, or?
Yeah, let's.
Paul, is that all right?
Yeah.
And we just look at those. If we look at those devices in Intune, hopefully I have them up, because I just wanted to explain how they appear in Intune, are tenant attached and so on. So we have actually got 3 devices here in Intune, and they are a mixture of tenant attached and co-managed, and tenant attached. Now you might think I'm repeating myself, but I'm not. So if we look at this first device here, Mini NT -DJ, this particular device is both tenant attached and co-managed, right? So you can have both tenant attached and co-managed. And the tenant attached features are the ones down here from client details onwards. And if we look over here on the 3 dots, we've got some additional abilities here, like sync machine policy, sync user policy, and app evaluation cycle. So this is a tenant attached and a co-managed device. If we now go back one and look at this device here, and you can see that it says config manager, right? And it's got less information showing up here, like the last check-in, even though it's online. If we click on that one, we can see a lot less information here. This device is only tenant attached, but that doesn't mean that we can't do anything with it. It still gathers some information from it, such as what collections are in there, and we can still deploy applications to it and get some more information on these nodes here. If we then take a look at the last device, which is tenant attached and co-managed only, that's this one here, you will see that it shows pretty much what you would see on an Intune managed device, except of course it's co-managed. So you can flip the workloads within Config Manager to decide, okay, I want Intune to manage, for example, Windows updates, but I want Config Manager to manage the applications on this device.
So I think it's worth at this point explaining the differences here. So that's a good overview of how they come up in the console.
Mm-hmm.
But we have co-management, we have tenant attached, and what's the difference really? So with co-managed, we're actually enrolling our devices into Intune using the co-management feature in Config Manager. And with tenant attached, we're actually attaching our Config Manager instance into the cloud. And the purpose of that at the moment is around giving you some of the console that you're used to going into online instead. So tenant attached, currently you'll see kind of help desky type features at the moment. So as Niall showed you there briefly, deploy an app, deploy a script, etc. So they're the two fundamental differences between those two cloud attached feature sets. Yeah.
Yeah, and the key thing about being co-managed in addition to tenant attached is that the co-managed device is really a gateway to becoming cloud managed alone, because it installs the Intune management extension and gives you the power of stuff in Intune as well as being managed in Config Manager. So it's kind of like the best of both worlds. Adding tenant attached to it does give you additional abilities here within the console.
So a question, I think it's right now. I've always tend to see the Config Manager console as pretty advanced, and I've heard stories about someone in Australia redeploying all sorts of servers with the task sequence. It's a pretty powerful tool, right? So this tenant attach, it sounds really great to me, because then you can have your service desk using a browser instead of going into the console. Is that correct? Understand?
That is correct. But with tenant attach alone, as I demonstrated with this one here, your abilities are limited, right? So if you're only using tenant attach, and that is a perfectly viable thing that you can do, the amount of things that you can do or gather from that device are limited. They're limited to what tenant attach is currently available to do.
Yeah, and I think in addition to that, what you're seeing here, so for example, now if you click on applications, so the apps that are defined here have to be defined in Config Manager. You can't go in here and start adding and deploying apps to these devices. You've got to do the configuration in the back end, but that's done by your admins. Yeah, and then as I say, this is more of a help desky type function at present, and therefore you can assign out to your help desk and say, okay, they want 7-zip, deploy through here.
Yeah,
but
there is one other thing that we can mention as well, and that is with tenant attach, you could actually tenant attach a server. And why would you want to do that? Well, in certain cases, you might want to be able to get some visibility of your servers in Intune, and that's one way of easily doing it. Just drop the device into your tenant attached collection, and boom, it will show up. In fact, we could do that right now, and let's see how long it takes to show up. So let's just grab a server at random. Let's take this one here, and let's see what happens if we add it.
And whilst Niall's doing that, going back to the cloud attached screen earlier, we've actually set it up to tenant attached to a specific collection in SCCM in Config Manager, and Niall's adding to that collection now. So you can pilot tenant attach in that way. You're not instantly having to push everything up there, or you could go big bang and say let's just push everything up, and that's why you'll just get everything all coming to the portal.
That's a nice thing, because then you can actually play Lego, right?
Yep, absolutely. And you know, customers are always going to be concerned. What's the impact here? Can we, before we go big bang, can we just be granular on this and just assign to a collection? Okay. Okay, so let's just hop back into that cloud attach. I just wanted to run through the cloud attach configuration, which we blog this obviously in the series, and show you the code management configuration that we have in place that we recommend. So this is under the admin. You've got the cloud attached node here under cloud services, and this is already configured. So if I go into the enablement section, we have again the ability to pilot code management, or we can this is enrollment, sorry, and we can push this to all devices or none at all. So again, this goes back to customers really and how they feel they want to go with this. You know, do you want to go big bang, or do you want to just pilot and be more granular? So we've set up an all co-managed devices collection in Config Manager, and the enablement of this effectively sets up the scenario of anything in this collection will be enabled to be enrolled. There are some prerequisites before that, which I'll run through on this demo. Then once they're enrolled, you can then start to target devices for certain workloads. And you can see here they've been split into separate workloads, compliance policies, device configuration, client apps, etc. I can even scroll down here. There's Windows updates as well. And these are all separate, so you can be, again, even more granular in how you stage this. As you can see here, I've flipped all these workloads to pilot Intune. And then in my staging section, we have separate collections for each workload. So the top one here, compliance policies, is pointing to a collection called co-managed compliance policies, device configuration as well, etc., all the way through. So you can be very granular on how you start to move devices between workloads, so you can pilot all these things out. You don't have to, put a device in all these collections. You could just push it into one and see what the effect is on that endpoint. And if I go into the collections themselves, move this down. You can see here that we've got all co-managed devices, and then the rest of the collections are limited back up to this all co-managed. So they have to effectively be enrolled before they go into the other collections, because if they're not enrolled, they're never going to be able to, be flipped over to Intune as such. So the prereqs around this, for you want to get the devices enrolled, but you've got to go through and get your prereqs in place. The two big ones are around licensing. So to enroll a device, a user has to be assigned the correct subscription that has the correct licensing in there. And the two required licenses are an Intune license, obviously, so the device can be managed in Intune. And then the other requirement is an Azure AD Premium license, P1 or P2. And that's used for auto-enrollment of the device. So without those assigned to the user, the enrollment won't happen, yeah? So you know, if you're going to have like a you know, Microsoft 365 E5, you're covered for that, or E3, you're covered for that kind of for that licensing. Then prior to that, you've got the requirement of being hybrid joined in Azure AD. So your devices that are built on-prem have to be synced up to Azure AD, and you would use AAD Connect to achieve that. Yeah. Now I'm going to run through it. I've got a bit of a demo here that's been recorded to kind of show you a bit of that flow of a device being synchronized up to Azure AD, and then that device then being enrolled. Okay, so let's.
I should have done that as well.
This works because it's been recorded. And
mine is still rebooting.
Yeah, hopefully the video will work. Otherwise we're screwed. But yeah, I've edited this, so I'm going to try and stop it along the way as I sort of talk through it, because no doubt I'll have cut it to shreds and missed bits out. So let me bring this up on screen. Okay. Okie. Right. Okay. So I've been demoing this on a Win 11 machine. I thought I'd get bang up to date with tech on this one. So what I've got is a device that's sitting in AD and currently isn't in the cloud at all. I've got AAD Connect set up, and for AAD Connect, I have to implement something called hybrid join. And that's if you go through the AAD Connect wizard, you go through and you run the hybrid join configuration. You have to enter your enterprise admin details and a GA account as well to authenticate and set up what's called a service connection point in AD. And that service connection point will contain some information for the devices that when they query the service connection point, they'll get that information back. And that info is the tenant name and the tenant ID. Obviously, within your AD Connect as well, you've got to be syncing the devices. They'll all have the OU that the devices are sat in, targeted for syncing up to the cloud as well. Yeah. So what happens on the device when the device queries the service connection point? It will send up some information to the device. It will send up a user certificate information to the device and fill this attribute in on the object itself. Okay, it will get filled in with some information here. When this user certificate exists, on the next sync of AAD Connect, AAD Connect will notice this change in the device itself, and then synchronize up with the next sync and pop the device into Azure AD in a pending state. Okay, so AD Connect synchronizes every 30 minutes, but you can run a command to speed that up. If you want to run a Delta sync, you can do that. So this command here, start AD sync cycle with the Delta policy type, will kick that sync off. But by default, it's every 30 minutes as a minimum. Yeah, you can't.
Sorry to interrupt, Paul, but you should also mention that if you want to run that commandlet, that you need the latest version of Azure AD Connect, right?
Ideally, yeah, for sure. I'm not in my lab, but one thing to note as well is that all version 1 versions of AD Connect are going to be deprecated, I think, around September time this year. So you should be looking to migrate over to version 2 or to upgrade to that. Yeah.
Hmm.
So 30 minutes is the lowest value you can set for that sync. You can change that, but you can't come down to 25, 20, whatever. It's got to be 30 and above. And as you can see here, this thing was running, you know, sort of quarter past and quarter to the hour, but I've kicked it off and moved things through a bit quicker. On this particular section here, connected with flow updates, we can see that device is being you recognize as a change, and therefore it's synced it up on that particular Delta sync. How that looks in the portal, yeah, I had a small screen here, so I'm just sort of filtering that across. You can see that Win11 device is, oop, let me go back, it was listed as pending there. Bring that back up. There we go. So pending device, and now it's waiting for the device itself to finish off the registration. So there's some more comms happening between the device in Azure. And if you take a look in your event logs, there's a user device registration log. And in that one there, we're looking for a 306 event, which is a successful registration. As you can see here, it's run that, that event's happened, sorry. There's actually a scheduled task that's working behind the scenes for that to happen. I say automatic registration succeeded. The device needs line of sight, by the way, when that's happening to the domain controller. So if you're in a if you're working outside the office, you've got to get a VPN in place and get that connectivity through for that 306 to work. Otherwise, it will never register. So in the task scheduler, there's a workplace join schedule task called automatic device join, and this one runs at logon, and it also runs with a random 406 event ID. And all this is doing is running a DS reg. Yeah. The 4096, I've got no idea what triggers that event ID, and I did ask on Twitter the other day, and I've had no response on that. It's a random thing, and on some devices you see it happen every couple of days or a couple of times a day. Other devices you don't see it happen for months. But the one at logon is the one that hopefully will trigger that for you at times. But if you're in a disconnected VPN scenario, that becomes a bit of a challenge, a bit of a chicken and egg, because unless you've got an always on, yeah, if it's a user initiated and they're doing that after login, then you've got a challenge to kind of get that scheduled task working for you. But yeah, once it's done that, you can see that the device itself comes in as registered. Okay, so that's your prereq in place. The device is now registered in Azure AD. This is then the point when you can start to target the device for enrollment. Okay, so if you haven't got this in place, you're not ready to start enrolling devices. Okay, so on the device itself, just to highlight here, we've got a co-management setting in the config manager applet. We're all hopefully familiar with this if we're config manager admins. You can see that co-management is actually disabled at this moment in time. Okay, that's because it hasn't been targeted for co-management. It's fairly obvious. The capabilities here. So this is a way of finding out which workload a device is in. By default, if the device isn't yet co-managed, or if it hasn't got any workloads associated with it, the co-management capability will be 8193. That's fairly new. So it used to be, I think, before version 2111, that co-management capability default would be value 1. But since 2111, that's now changed, and this is the default value. Okay. So I think Niall mentioned earlier there's the co-management handler log on the device, and this is the go-to log for looking at your co-management setup. And we'll be kind of churning through that a few times as we kind of troubleshoot things around co-management. But you can see here we've got co-management is disabled, but it's expected to be enabled. I think that's probably there because co-management is enabled in the environment, but this currently isn't enabled. So that's how it's kind of worded there. As you can see, that flag of 8193 is highlighted there as well. Okay. So all we do with this device is we add it into that top level co-management collection of all co-managed devices. Again, fairly simple stuff. If you're a config manager admin, just add it in. And once it's populated in there, the device will run when it runs a machine policy retrieval, will update and attempt to enroll. Okay, so there's just a bit of proof it's sat in that collection. And then give it a kick.
And here's something you miss in Microsoft Intune, right? Here you can just, now I want to Paul.
Yeah. Logs and yeah, logs. Looking at logs, finding information easily is tricky in Intune, as we know. You've not got the logs to hand. You've got to start looking at event viewer and various other things. But yeah, the click the button, sync, and things happen.
I've found the problem, I think.
Cool. Well, we'll head back your way in a minute now. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
That's cool. Okay, so as you can see, this thing has done its thing. I've kicked the tires on the policy refresh as such, and it's churning through. Okay, as you can see, it's trying to do device enrollment, and here you can see MDM enrollment has actually succeeded. So that's pretty cool. Behind the scenes, it's done its thing. Now I think on this device I was naughtily logged in as admin, so I get this pinging up. If I'm logged in as my user, that wouldn't be a problem. But Niall always tells me off for using admin when I'm testing things out. It's not real world. Yeah, so going back into the applet again, after that change, close it down and back in, you can see then that it's actually now enabled for co-management, which is cool. So that's step one. And the device itself will appear in the Intune console once it's enrolled, which is our expectation here. And you can see this one comes up as it's managed by config manager. Okay, now that will change, and I can show you here. It does actually go off and create a couple of things, and this is going to be something Niall again will highlight with tenant attached, I think, later. But initially, it has to kind of it'll create another object, and then they'll merge. So as you can see now, I've done a refresh there, and a co-managed object appears. And then after an amount of time, that'll just merge back into one object, which is just purely a co-managed object in Intune.
So that's kind of the same that config manager do when it reinstalls a device, merge objects, right?
Exactly, and it's all the magic happens behind the scenes. You don't have to get involved there on that one. The next thing to kind of show you here is just how you can move this device into another workload. So if I add it into, for example, that endpoint protection collection, and again, give that another whack on the machine policy retrieval, you can see here that the numbers are changing in the log file around the capabilities. So there are some blogs out there that show you exactly what the capability numbers relate to for each workload. Worth checking those out. But you can just add them up. You know, you can just get a calculator and add them up, and okay, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1. That's in this workload, that workload, whatever that means ultimately. But you can add them up, and job done. So what that means is, so I added it into the endpoint protection collection. So now any type of endpoint collection profile that I assign from Intune to that device, it will be targeted from Intune. And there will still be some things coming from on-prem, so you have to bear that in mind. And we can talk a bit more about that later on, I think. But that's kind of an overview of getting that device into that co-managed state, ready to start playing with it from the cloud.
Great. Seems very easy when you know what to do, right? And how the process is.
Yeah. To be honest, it really is very simple. From a front end view of, I add it to a collection, and then this syncs, and then it changes. But you have to take things under consideration. What's the impact going to be on that device? What do I have to do on-prem to get this fully managed in Intune? How do I stop things from Intune being on the device if I don't want them to be, and that kind of thing? So you got to take that consideration and look at it as you're planning this out. So, for example, a good example here, going back to that initial enablement screen. Let's see if I can bring that one back up. Oh, I'm locked out. But the enablement screen that where we mentioned about the pilot collection for enrolling the device, that top all co-managed devices collection. Microsoft are keen for you to just go, okay, they want you to get the devices enrolled, and they go, okay, well, why would you need to pilot this? Okay, well, it's like, as we said earlier, businesses will want to be cautious. They'll want to kind of dip their toe in the water before they go any further on that. So piloting is kind of the way to go. Now, when you look at the documentation, you'll see that the certain profiles match up with certain workloads in the co-management space. So, for example, a BitLocker encryption profile is actually a device configuration policy that you target or whatever. But if you look at PowerShell scripts, they can actually be targeted to any device that is co-managed, even if the workloads haven't shifted. Yeah, so you have to be really careful with that. So if they're in that all co-managed devices collection, if you have a PowerShell script in Intune that is pushed to all devices, they'll get it. So you've got to be careful, yeah. And as I say, it's about planning, yeah? Looking at what you've currently got in the cloud, what could impact that device as you start to shift them around the place. So it's really, as we say, treading carefully, taking your time and assessing that.
So if I co-manage my device and I do not shift anything, all the workloads is still in my config manager environment, I would think that, all right, my device is now managed by config manager and Intune. That's great. But all my eggs are still in config manager. That would be what I, as a user or IT pro, would think. So you're telling me, Paul, that I can actually push out PowerShell scripts from Intune. That's one thing, right? The other thing that is also possible is one of the great feature of Intune, right, for wiping a device, for example. So if you want to, it's been stolen or something in the metro, or you can actually wipe it, right, when it co-managed.
Yeah, absolutely. So as soon as you get that device enrolled, you're lighting up that capability straight away. So, going back into that console and the things that Niall was showing you against the devices. No, I don't know if you want to bring up a purely co-managed device again in the portal.
Yep, hold on. Remind me to show you what the problem was as well.
Mm-hmm.
What did you say? You want
a pure co-managed device?
That I don't have a pure co-managed device. I don't think, except maybe this one.
But they're tenant attached and co-managed, yeah.
Okay, this one is this is co-managed, not tenant attached. So it's just co-managed.
Yeah. So you can see straight away on the top there, we've got the ability to retire and wipe a device. And that's functionality that we wouldn't have with an on-prem object. Yeah. So it's brand new straight away. As soon as it's enrolled, job done. We can crack on with some of that new funky cool stuff. Yeah.
So you actually get value right away when you co-manage your device. You don't have to change any workloads or anything. Now you have capability of wiping your device from anywhere, just to have internet, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, well, not just internet. I mean, if you're using PKI environment, it needs to be working. Is quite applicable in this environment.
Yeah, of course. So just a question around the workloads. So we've seen these 7 workloads you had in pilot. And if I were a customer, where do I start? I mean, I have 7 workloads. What is the meaning of this? Do I do the configuration profile first, or do I look at security issues? For example, a buzzword now is zero trust. I want zero trust. So I need some signaling on my clients. So is that the first? Is the compliance signals?
It's entirely up to the customer and what they want. So
Yeah.
if they want conditional access, for example, then they should configure it that way. So here are the sliders that you were talking about, and what we've blogged in our series is, I think we enabled conditional access, and we enabled the compliance policies workload, this one here. So it varies from customer to customer. Some might want to pilot everything and just go all in. But of course, the danger of that is that you have many more things that can go wrong, and also many things that you need to now verify are working. So it's probably best to just start simple and move one workload at a time and verify that that works exactly as you would expect it to before moving it entirely to Intune, if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, I think you know, one of the things to note here is that certain changes here on these workloads will dictate what you get, as in flip the compliance workload, and this is only going to come from Intune. Same with the Windows Update policy. Yeah, flip it to Pilot Intune. The device is only going to get things from there. When you look at something like device configuration, things are still going to come from on-prem and Config Manager and on Intune as well. So you've got to work that out. Okay, that, you know, as I was saying earlier, what's going to hit you from on-prem, what's going to hit you from Intune, and make sure you get that mix right. So as Niall says, customers tend to kind of go, okay, it depends on the customer. Okay, so some customers may go, actually, compliance policies, we're not ready to start looking at those yet, because we've got to go and work out what our compliancy criteria is going to be. Yeah. And we'll only flip that once we're ready, and once we're happy with our conditional access rules as well, because you'd be surprised how many aren't there yet with that. Yeah, they're still defining it. They don't know yet. Mm-hmm. So it really depends on the customer. The client apps one is quite interesting in that this is another one where you can have a mix of things. That is a real quick win, I find, in that you can set up your device to, if you pilot Intune, you can set up your device to have applications coming from either Intune or Config Manager, and you can be clever with your client settings and set up Company Portal as the method to sort of get the apps coming through. I do have more demos if you want to see some stuff around that. Yep. Yeah. And also around the compliance policies as well, if they work, because these are live now. Yeah.
Yeah, we like live demos.
So let's see. Okay, so let's take a look at the client apps one.
You're not sharing, or are you?
Oh yeah, good old Teams fail immediately there by me. To chat for about 5 minutes, and then people tell me I'm not actually showing anything on my screen.
At least we haven't had the unmute.
Give it time. Okay, so this is my click to run apps. Sorry, client apps policy. I'm just wondering why there was nothing in it. It's client apps I'm dealing with here. Okay, so this is the ability to bring in apps from either Intune or Config Manager. For that particular policy, sorry, the particular collection, I've got a client setting. Here, co-management settings, which I made meaningful, so I'd be able to recognize it when I went back to it. And all I'm doing in this is in the software center is I'm setting company portal as the user portal for the ability to show both config manager and Intune apps. Yeah, so that's quite easily just deployed out to that particular collection. Yeah.
So you can't do that in the regular software center on the device.
Not as far as I'm aware. No,
Oh.
no. It's
Yep.
purely the company portal where you can tap into this. So this is the core power of this particular configuration, and it helps you in scenarios where you have hundreds and hundreds of apps to bring across to Intune. You could use Ben Whitmore's call conversion tool, yeah, to help you with that. But if you're not there and you haven't got the time, bring them in from config manager, use the ones you've got in Intune as well. Perfect. You could buy yourself some time.
And we actually have a video on the channel with Ben actually showing his tool himself. So go watch that.
Pretty cool, definitely. Okay, so I'm targeting that setting. I then need to push company portal to those devices, okay, that are in that collection. But what I can do for this, because I need to know what devices are in this collection, so we can tap into some cool tech called Cloud Sync Cloud Sync. Yeah, sorry, and that's syncing the collection up into Azure AD.
So this is actually another feature that can do something to target devices in the cloud instead of AD Connect, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So this is a feature that will say that the members of this collection can get synchronized up to a Azure AD group. So I've created already an all co-managed client apps devices group in the portal, the MEM portal, and all I do in here is go into this. There's a configuration under admin where I have to turn this on, but I can click add and I can go in here and search for a new group, click search, authenticating, and it will display the group there. I can just link it that way. Devices sync up every 15 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, every 15 minutes.
That's right.
Yeah. So so that's cool, because then I can actually go, okay, I'm gonna publish the company portal, and I'm going to target that Azure AD group, and that device will be in that group. Job done. Okay. Now that synchronization is one way. Okay, so it'll go up from config manager to Intune. If you pop a device in that group that's an AD device, it won't sync back into this collection. It doesn't work that way. But you can add members to that group. Yeah, it's just an assigned group in Azure, so you can actually add Azure AD only devices into that and still target them.
So this is actually a quite clever way to use all the nice querying in collection management in config manager and actually get them to Azure AD groups.
Yeah, that's
because Azure AD groups has its limitations, right? We have dynamic groups, but it has its limitations.
Yeah, I've used that quite extensively recently to on a particular project where I had to synchronize. I had to recreate drive mapping targeting that were targeted to users of the users in specific OUs. I couldn't have those OUs represented up in the cloud, although now there is a feature to do it. There's an ability to do it, but back when I was doing this, there wasn't. So we used config manager to create collections based on OUs and then sync those up using Cloud Sync up into the cloud, so then we could target them for the drive maps that were drive maps don't. It's drive mapping shouldn't be done anyway, but yeah, it is what it is. So totally can use that technology for those sort of things. Yeah. And just to show you on the device, So this is my Barnsley football club connection here. This is one of Barnsley's best ever players, who's now got an AD account in SCCM Solutions.
He's a golfer, right?
Golfer.
Some kind of golfer. It's
Hmm.
a ball and it's
FC
kind of a
is
club.
golf, isn't it?
Hey, come on. You don't know who Ronnie Glavin is?
No.
I don't. I don't. I know who Ronaldo and Messi is, but I think that's how far I go.
Yeah, he was playing for us in 1985, so it's quite a while back.
That's when I was born. So.
Oh. Oh my God.
Sorry.
And it's the first time he's ever logged on to this machine as well, so it's taken a while.
Yeah, so we're going to see the initial screen. This doesn't take too long, it says. Have a cup of
Shall
coffee.
we jump over to the problem?
Yes, let's have the
Why
problem
not?
while this is provisioning.
I did a little bit of
file. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. We can return back to yours in a minute, Paul.
That's
I
cool.
did a little bit of troubleshooting while Paul was doing his video, and had a look at this log here on the client, and you can see straight away that big sea of red is referring to inability to communicate with using the certificates. And the reason why was because if I go to the issuing CA, you can see it can't communicate with the web server, which is hosting the CRL, which is needed for communication. And the reason for that was because I have multiple labs and I had the port open to the internet pointing to a different lab. So let's remove that. Right now, we're going to do it live and show you how to fix it, at least in my environment. And boom, there we've done that. Now it's open. And now if I go back here and click this, look at that. It's happy. And if we go back to here, it's that silly. And click on this one. And let's try a little live demo like we tried to do, some time ago.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and it hasn't gone and install putty now, of course. But let's try again. Let's see if we can get another app. What have we got? And of course, now Intune is playing up. Oh, here we go. 7-zip. Let's try and install 7-zip, shall we? So look here at the start menu. Click on 7-zip. Will it give us some love? And actually, that was what was deciding whether it was online or not. The ability to communicate using the certificates. Isn't that amazing?
Mm-hmm.
So if we look here, we should see 7-zip appearing any moment now. See, it says installation in progress on the left.
Yeah.
Come on.
Niall, is this on a local network? Or
It
is
is a
on
local
internet?
network. It is a local network, but it's connected on the internet. So my PKI environment needs to be working. If you have a PKI environment, it needs to be working, especially if there's a CRL. And my CRL is public. So if I give you the address of that, you'd be able to connect to it, actually.
Oh.
Yeah. So it just so happens that the PKI environment that I use in my labs is 2-tier, and I have a CRL. And if your CRL can't be accessed, you're going to have all sorts of problems like this.
Mm.
So that was pretty cool.
That's a good note.
Yes. Oh, and
yes.
I'll just finish it off with one last thing. If we go to client details now, you'll see it says online yes. And if I turn off that port again and do a refresh, it'll say online no. Isn't that interesting?
That's quite fast.
Mm.
And what I noticed is that your installation of your app was like it happened when you clicked. So it was instant. That's nothing you can see if you say I'm going to target this device using Intune. Then it's like, okay, let's see when it happens. Of course, you can go and do a manual sync like we can with the config manager agent, but if we sync too many times, you will, you won't see any good results of that. So with Intune, we need to have more time, I would say.
Yeah, for some things. I mean,
for some things,
in
yes.
some ways, it's fantastic. In other ways, it's lacking. But it's the same with Config Manager. In some ways, it's fantastic, and in other ways, it's painful. So, but one thing that's fantastic about Config Manager, of course, is the logging, both on the client side and on the server side. So you can start with the server side logs, see what's complaining there. We didn't really get that many hints, but on the client side, the hints were there, and they pointed to PKI. And when I checked the issuing CA, I mean, it was clear to me, you know, I had switched from one lab to the other, and that was the reason why I forgot to change the port. Oh, well.
This is what makes co-management so interesting, because you have a strong product and you have another product that is also strong, but they complement each other, right? We don't have, for example, bare metal installations from Intune. We have that in Config Manager. We don't have out-of-the-box possibilities to push policies to a client that is not on the local area network, but we have Intune for that. So it really fit together. So well played, Microsoft.
Yeah, I mean, the way I see it, co-management is really how Microsoft was trying or is trying to help. It's one way of getting people to become cloud managed. And I think that's great. It's a stepping stone. It's not for everyone. Some companies, like the one I work for, we're going for a completely different strategy. We're actually going to go for, we're going to go from SCCM to Intune managed only. So we're just going to make the jump. We've already looked at co-management, but for us, what we want is cloud management only going forward. So, but we can talk about that later.
Yes, and we are going to talk about that, Niall, because that's a quite interesting thought, because that is many customers going that way, because they think Config Manager is too advanced for them. And of course, it's not too advanced for us. But again, we saw in this demo that what could possibly go wrong, right? And if you don't have that kind of knowledge, and I mean, you have a great experience with this product, right? And Paul too. And you can solve it right away because you know your product, you know which logs to look into. But for those that doesn't do that every day, it is so hard to actually find the problem.
Yeah, and I think a lot of companies nowadays have staff that are either outsourced or insourced, and therefore they don't have the experience at home, so to speak. So, you know, they might have someone managing their SCCM environment or Config Manager environment, but those people may have no experience of how it works in that enterprise, or they may have little experience, I should say. And that you can see that today.
I think also, you know, you've had an issue there and around PKI, and unless if you're not aware, I mean we are, that you're going to have to be HTTPS come October to be in a supported state in Config Manager. So that could either be PKI or it could be enhanced HTTP. Now your security team may dictate which way that goes. They may say, we want PKI, we want full trust on this, and therefore you start to stand up something that's a lot more complex for an admin in an already complex product. So, you know, and things like this can happen. So that's going to happen very soon, and it's just increasing complexity. But you know, that's part of the fun, I find. You know, sometimes I like that complexity and I like that challenge. And, you know, Mitesh, you say, you know, we can go in the logs and find the problem. Doesn't always happen. Sometimes it takes a while to dig and find that exact problem. But you see a lot of patterns. Yeah, you know, you see things happening. Oh yeah, I've seen that before. Next thing you know, you're Googling and you're back on your own site thinking, did I really fix that 2 years ago? Was that what I did?
Yeah.
Shall I run through the client apps thing now? My login has finally kicked in.
Yes.
We're doing
Let's
some
see.
tag teams.
You need to share.
I need to share. Thank you for reminding me now. Cool. Okay. So finally logged into that client, and as you can see here, I brought the company portal up, and I have two apps here that are published to it. Now here is one of those apps, 7-zip, that's deployed to my all Windows 10 desktops collection. I cracked open the software center as well here to kind of prove the point. That's coming from SCCM, and Greenshots reporting is installed there. Click on my installed state, you can see that's installed already. So that's cool. That's, you know, I don't actually have anything coming to this device via Intune, but I could publish now an Intune app to this, and it would show up in the company portal, and I get the best of both worlds again with this client app workload shifted across to Intune. I wanted to show you compliance as well, and it goes back to what Niall was saying earlier on about, you know, we did a blog part of the series. We focused in on compliance around you know, blocking access to Office, for example, if you're not compliant. So again, this is the workload is shifted to Intune, and in my tenant, I've got a require encryption compliancy check, and this particular device hasn't encrypted. Okay, so if I go back to the portal, pick the device itself, you can see it's not compliant. The devices here, the Win 11 device, this is a Win 10 device I'm demoing on now, I believe. Is that right? Yeah, that's my Win 10 device. The Win 11 device hasn't had that workload shifted, so it's still using Config Manager for its compliancy, whereas this is now looking at Intune for its compliancy and is reporting that non-compliant state. So I have a conditional access rule set up to check for markers compliant. If the device is not compliant, then basically it won't give me access to Office or any cloud app effectively. So let's try it and see. Let's bring up Word.
And the conditional access, for those who are not familiar with that term, that is the first line of defense when you have cloud. You want to say, okay, is this device trusted, where the user work, and allow, and either allow or block, right?
Yeah.
Or even prompt for MFA.
And this has let me in. Why? Not now. Okay. Am I not? I'm not authenticated. Sorry. Okay. Let me try authenticating in. Oh, it wants me to activate. I don't think this guy actually has a license, so that's going to be a complete demo fail, isn't it?
He's a cheapskate, isn't he?
Yeah.
That calls for.
He does. Sorry.
He didn't earn that many money on his football career, so he couldn't afford to pay the license.
No. Okay, let's see if this now lets me do what I'm trying to do, which is prove. There we go. Okay, so he's blocked. Yeah, he's not compliant, and he can't get access to any Office product, any cloud app. I could go into office.com, try exactly the same, and be stopped from doing that. So at this point, I have to get that device compliance to meet the criteria and get into a compliant state. So, you know, it's a really simple set of rules, very powerful.
And we blocked it.
And we blocked it. Yeah, so you can see that whole process to from start to finish on how to set that up.
It's the Windows 10. It should be blocked.
We've pretty much blocked everything that we've covered today, I think.
Yeah.
There's some interesting challenges along the way for all this kind of thing. You know, we're making it look simple, and it is simple to get started, but there are challenges all the time with code management. So, for example, going back to the drive mapping work that I talked about, okay. So, well, even just having these policies coming from Intune and on-prem or SCCM, it's quite easy for me to go, okay, I'm going to set this workload and point it to my. Sorry, I'm knocking things over. Set things from Intune to this device and think everything's all great and it's all working. Well, actually, I still have my old GPOs and my policies set against the device, and that you know, that they're already working away in the background. So I've got to start turning those things off to truly take advantage of co-management. Yeah, I need to start blocking access to GPOs. I need to start removing deployments in SCCM that are targeted here. It could be antivirus policies. It could be apps or whatever that I don't want. You know, I want to move them across to the cloud. So you've got to start turning things off on-prem. You may never do that because this is a bridge to the cloud, and you may never have that ability to go complete cloud. But if you're wanting to go that route, you've got to start doing that and turning off the lights on-prem before you can totally say 100% this is working from cloud. Now, conditional access is different because it's a compliancy policy, because it's one that blocks it. Okay, same with Windows updates. If I move my Windows update policy to Intune, I'm not going to get anything from SCCM regards the management of Windows updates, and it will start coming from Intune. However, I still have to be careful though, because I could have group policy coming around Windows updates that stop the Intune deployment because there's a conflict there. So lots of work. We're making it look simple at the minute, but there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that you still have to work on.
And that's what the pit holes you call it, right? Because your device identity is hybrid, so you still get these GPOs from the DC, right? Yeah. And that will not happen once you go Azure AD only, because then of course you can't get any GPOs, but
yeah,
then all your security also goes away, right? So you need to have all these policies in place before you can actually do that move.
Yeah, sure. And the thing is, with Azure AD only, you could co-manage it. So we mentioned it earlier on. You have that capability, and this is where the CMG kicks in and starts to make itself known. You could co-manage. You could install a config manager client through the console. Now, there are different ways to do that. Again, we blocked it, but there's an ability to use a line of business app. There's an ability to use a Win32 app, but we now have this new feature. Let's go into enrollment around co-management settings. Yeah, so we can click into here and create a policy that the client will install on an autopilot device without us having to package it. And we can set a policy that will flip the co-management workloads to either config manager or Intune. So you can quickly get a device if it's co-managed. It's the thing is, if you have an autopilot device that you co-manage, when you install the SCCM client, it's then managed by config manager. So you've got to get it into the workloads again for Intune, for those Intune policies to apply to it. So if it's an AD joined device, it's not encrypting. You've got a policy coming down from Intune, but it's not encrypting. Well, actually, the workload is not actually flipped. You've got it sat in an all co-managed devices collection or wherever. It's not in that workload collection for encryption. So you've got to think about that. And this is where this comes in handy. By using this co-management feature here, you can install a client and instantly get the workloads flipped straight back to Intune. Otherwise, you're going to have to start being a little bit clever with your collection configuration, but you're still reliant on collection evaluation to get you back into that correct workload, and that could take a while before that happens. And if you're using compliancy in the mix there as well, the device won't become compliant until it gets into Intune and in that workload. And you could be waiting an hour, 2 hours, whatever, because it depends what the trigger is to get it in that workload. So this comes in really, really helpful, actually. And this is a fairly new feature. Bear in mind, this is an Azure AD only feature. You can't use this with hybrid join autopilot devices, as I recently found out.
Yeah.
It would have been really helpful in my scenario a few weeks ago, but no, it isn't the case. It's purely AED join.
So hybrid and autopilot, that is, yeah, don't go there, right? Don't go
but
there.
poor Paul has gone there, unfortunately.
I'm there quite often at the moment, unfortunately. Yeah.
That's the pain. That's the pain. Yeah.
But yeah,
So-
you can use code management on your AD join devices for whatever reason it is that you want to do that. It could be that you want to use some of the, you're not ready with the apps yet, so you still want to tap into config manager for all your apps until you finally get them migrated. So it could be a stepping stone again, to a bridge to get you everything in the cloud.
Yeah, this is great. I think I think this was a great demo. Even that it might fail the first time, and it is a learning experience for those who is going to look at this and say, okay, it actually fails for the experts as well, and it's a
All
good
the
learning
time.
all the time.
Always.
That's
And-
how we learn.
Yeah.
And again, that's exactly how we learn. We fix the problem, and then we blog it to actually remember what we did right, and
Exactly.
experience.
It's exactly why I started blogging. I think it's 9 years ago now with the SCCMentor blog, was purely to remind myself where it had all gone wrong, and a little knowledge base to say, okay, that's how I fixed it. And really from there, it became, oh, there's a community behind this, and oh, well, there's people actually reading this thing, and and it's really spiraled from there. But for being involved in community, but the whole thing is around, blog it if you've got a problem, big or small, whatever it is. I published something today, a tiny little thing around an edge configuration, and it's minute, a detail, but that Google search could save someone 20-30 minutes of trying to work out what the hell to do.
And everyone who find exactly that and want to set exactly that will thank you, Paul. And the same goes for all the articles on Windows Noob, for example, all the config manager stuff. There's plenty of stuff that you can go there and learn, and that's really something. And it's huge of you guys, and you spend your personal time to actually do this and give your knowledge to someone else, and that's fantastic.
It's almost like an addiction, I think. The blogging. I mean, if I go 2 weeks and I haven't blogged something, I start to feel bad about it. And when I blog something and I feel that I put enough effort into it and I got the message across, then I feel good. But that feeling of goodness falls the longer the time passes till the next blog. So, like I said, it's almost like an addiction. I have to keep at it. But lately, I've been a bit quiet, and that's because I've been spending all my time developing this new app, which I'm going to blog this week, hopefully.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll have another session where we maybe look at that.
Yep.
Yeah, because there's plenty more in co-management and tenant attach, but we can't get it all in one video, right?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the going back to what we were saying about the blogging, I think the key thing around all this for me is that the sharing. Why would I want to hold all that knowledge to myself? Share that knowledge, because as we've all experienced, we've built up friendships, we've built up go-to people we can talk to, we can ask questions ourselves when we're stuck. So we're going back to that. Oh, we can fix it quickly. Sometimes we'll be asking people, and we build up this great community where we're all exchanging ideas and asking questions. And there are other communities like that, but what I find in this community is that everyone is friendly and open and great. Why not? We're all inclusive. We're all getting on with it, and we all are in the same position, in that we're battling day by day to fix problems, to get things working, and we reach out where we have problems, and people are always willing to help.
Can I change the subject here just very briefly?
Yeah.
I'm just going to share my screen because Matthias mentioned that he was born in 1985, I think. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that just makes me feel so old, because look at this. in 1988, I wrote this program for Amstrad CPC computers, retro computers back in the day. And I programmed it in Z80 machine code. It was great fun doing it, but this happened in 1988. You were 3 years old.
I didn't
there
know
you go.
computers at that time.
Yeah.
The first one I had was a Commodore 64. Just playing games.
So that one.
Exactly. So who haven't? The great machine.
Yeah.
Guys, it has been a absolutely pleasure to have you on the show, and thank you for showing us the co-management and tenant attached feature and all the different scenarios we can have in the MEM console. I think it gave a very, very good overview and what the different technologies is and what they can help us with. So thank you again. It was absolutely pleasure, and yeah, hope to see you in person in maybe the this year. Maybe, I don't know. Let's see what Microsoft come up with. So
will be awesome. Hopefully, I really hope we can get to go back to Seattle and chill there for a week. It'd be lovely.
Definitely,
that would be lovely.
Thanks ever so much for the invite to come on. It's been great to demo stuff and to chat.
Thank you, guys.
And to fail. Thanks, Matthias.
Bye.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye.